You know, sometimes it's the quieter moments, the deals signed behind closed doors, or these really difficult individual stories that tell you the most about where things stand globally.
That's right.
Today, we're going to look at two things that seem worlds apart. First, there's this minerals agreement between the US and Ukraine,
Hmm.
and then a completely different situation, a really heart-wrenching story about a Venezuelan toddler separated from her parents during deportation.
Yeah. And both these stories come from CNN reports this week, May 1st and April 30th.
Exactly. And our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to kind of unpack these, see how they might connect, even if indirectly, and hopefully give you a clearer picture of what's really driving things.
Let's dive in. The U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal first.
Yeah, let's start there. So, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Ukraine's first Deputy PM Yulius Fyrodenko. They signed this deal. On the surface, seems pretty straightforward. Minerals cooperation, good.
Right. It looks like a standard bilateral agreement, but the analysis we're seeing suggests it's actually largely symbolic.
Largely symbolic. Okay, so what's the real game here? What are the motivations if it's not, a massive material exchange right now?
Well, you have to look at it from both sides.
Yeah.
For the Trump administration, there seems to be this domestic political need, a need to show that America is, quote, getting something back from its support for Kiev.
Okay. So it's about the optics back home, showing a tangible return. Makes sense.
Exactly. It plays into that transactional view of foreign policy.
And what about Ukraine? Why sign a deal that's maybe more symbol than substance?
For Kiev, it sounds like it was pretty critical. The reporting suggests they needed this to demonstrate that the relationship with the Trump White House is functional, improving even, to avoid what was called a potential seismic rupture.
Wow, seismic rupture. That sounds serious. So this deal was maybe a way to keep lines open, keep things stable.
Precisely. It's about maintaining dialogue, showing cooperation. And, Ukraine's allies probably saw this too, maybe as a way to smooth things over, remove a potential distraction, as the article puts it, so they could get back to talking about military aid, about peace.
Okay, so a necessary step, perhaps. Now, inside the actual text of the agreement, apparently there are a couple of phrases Kiev really sees as important. The first one is the U.S. acknowledging the large-scale destruction caused by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Why is that specific wording a win for Ukraine?
Well, it's significant because the White House has often been, let's say, more cautious or ambiguous in its language about attributing direct blame to Russia for the full extent of the invasion's impact.
Right.
So having this clear statement, large-scale destruction caused by Russia's full-scale invasion, written into a signed deal, that carries diplomatic weight. It's validation for Ukraine.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second point, it's about how Ukraine might pay for U.S. weapons? That sounds crucial given the ongoing war.
Absolutely crucial. This part outlines a potential pathway. Basically, if the U.S. provides military aid, the value of that aid boosts the U.S. capital contribution to a specific fund.
Okay.
And then Ukraine can essentially use that fund, draw on it to buy weapons.
So it's like a credit system almost.
Sorta, yeah. And the article specifically mentions this could potentially cover things like desperately needed Patriot missile interceptors.
Yeah.
That shows you how relevant this mechanism could be, even if it's down the road.
Right, patriots are vital for them, but the reporting also says future governments in either country could just ignore this deal.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to the largely symbolic nature of it. There's no ironclad guarantee here.
Mm.
Politics change, administrations change.
So it's not locked in.
Not at all.
Huh.
Plus, doing business in Ukraine, especially in natural resources, has always been complex. Post-war, the article hints this could get pretty messy.
So it's this weird mix, isn't it? It seems wide-ranging, huge, and game-changing, but it's also called symbolic and an urgent band-aid. How do we square that?
It really is a duality. Look, despite the symbolic label, it does achieve things right now. It gives the Trump administration a talking point. It gives Kiev a mechanism, a hope for future arms funding.
And maybe sends a message.
I think so, particularly that part about how arms could be paid for. That's likely being read very closely in the Kremlin. It might suggest that even if the U.S. approach to Moscow shifts, the means for Ukraine to defend itself aren't completely off the table. A subtle signal, perhaps.
Okay, a lot of layers there. Let's shift gears now to the other story. This one feels much more immediate and, frankly, disturbing. The case of Makeley's Antonella Espinosa Bernal. A 2-year-old Venezuelan girl.
Yes, separated from her parents by U.S. authorities. It's a very tough situation.
And Venezuela is accusing the U.S. of kidnapping. That's incredibly strong language. What happened here? Can you walk us through the events?
According to the CNN report, the separation apparently happened right as Makeley's mother was boarding a deportation flight back to Venezuela. They were separated at that point.
Taken away from her mother on the plane stairs, essentially.
That seems to be the allegation. And the father, Maker Espinosa Escalona, he wasn't even there. He'd already been deported earlier, sent to the CCOT mega prison down in El Salvador.
Right, that notorious prison. So the family was already being broken apart.
Yes. And Venezuela's government immediately condemned it, calling it a serious offense, specifically about separating families.
What's the U.S. side? The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, what are they saying?
Well, DHS denies the kidnapping accusation, flat out. Their initial statement claimed they acted to protect the child. They accused the parents, though, importantly, without providing evidence in that first statement of being part of the Tren de Aragua gang.
TDA, that's the group the U.S. designated as a terror organization, right? A very serious claim.
Extremely serious. And the father denies it. He says he thinks it's because of his tattoos. CNN noted they reached out to the mother. DHS said they took the toddler off the flight for her safety and welfare. She's now with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, in foster care.
This echoes other situations, doesn't it? The article even mentions U.S. citizen kids deported with undocumented mothers to Honduras under the Trump administration.
It does. And there was that detail where the border czar, Tom Holman, claimed the mothers had requested the children go with them. It raises questions about choice, about pressure.
Yeah, was Makeley's mother given a real choice here? We don't know.
It's unclear from the reporting. The family's background is that they came seeking asylum back in May 2024. The father got a deportation order under the Biden administration in July. Then the parents were detained. Makeley's went into ORR care.
But they were seeing her.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently they had weekly in-person visits between October and March, so there was contact.
And then things escalated dramatically. The father gets moved to Guantanamo Bay.
Yes. Transferred there on March 29th, which is highly unusual. Then quickly deported from Guantanamo to the CCOT prison in El Salvador.
Why El Salvador?
The report suggests the U.S. is detaining Venezuelan migrants accused of gang ties there, potentially without strong evidence. It's like an outsourcing of detention. CNN reached out to the Salvadoran government, too.
And after the father is sent there, the mother is deported back to Venezuela, but without Makeley's.
That's the sequence of events reported.
Yeah.
The family unit completely dismantled in stages.
And then DHS came out with more details. Or more allegations.
Later, yes. A subsequent statement alleged, again, the article states, without providing evidence in the report itself, that the father was a TDA lieutenant involved in homicides and trafficking, and the mother oversaw recruitment for drug smuggling and prostitution.
Those are incredibly damaging accusations, again, without proof presented in the article.
Correct. And Venezuela's response has been furious. They accuse the U.S. of violating international law, demand the girl's return. They're citing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Which the U.S. hasn't fully ratified, right?
Signed, but not ratified. That's an important distinction, legally. But Venezuela is still using it to frame their argument about family unity and the child's best interests.
And President Maduro himself is involved now?
Yes. Nicolas Maduro has publicly stated the U.S. is unjustly holding Makeley's. He called for a rally on May 1st to demand her release, and also mentioned other Venezuelans deported to El Salvador. It's become a major diplomatic flashpoint. So when you step back, you see these two stories. The Ukraine minerals deal, symbolic, strategic, political, and then this Venezuelan family situation, deeply personal, rights-based, humanitarian. Seemingly unrelated.
But they both tell us something about current U.S. policy, don't they? How decisions are made, what factors are weighed.
Absolutely. The Ukraine deal shows this focus on immediate political needs, maybe signaling future intentions, even if it's symbolic. The Venezuelan case throws a harsh light on immigration enforcement, due process, human rights questions, especially when serious accusations like gang affiliation are involved.
It's that contrast. A deal that looks grand but might be thin versus a small child's life caught in these huge geopolitical and security currents.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much do domestic political wins in a powerful country like the U.S. end up shaping individual lives far away? And what are the long-term costs when symbolic wins or security narratives potentially overshadow substantive agreements or, basic humanitarian concerns?
That's the question to ponder, definitely. How are these choices balanced, and what are the consequences down the line? We hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought on that.
Continue exploring these issues, look at the different angles.
Thanks for joining us.